Hello my felting friends, welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to do a nice little countryside scene with a little cottage in. So it shouldn't be too hard. If you followed the other videos I've done for the beginning of this year, we've built some of it up to doing this one now. So you should be fine. So I'm just showing you how I'm just roughly mapping out the picture that I want. It's nothing too complicated in this one either. So this week we're going to have this little house is the main new thing we're going to do, and we're going to have a little bit of wall and a fence as well. So there's still not many colours in it. We're just going to mix the colours well, and I will tell you if I change colours and things like that. So you should be able to do this just fine. And as always, you just need to have a middle green, sort of a basic green colour, sort of mid green, one that you can mix some yellow into to make it lighter, or some black or something into to make it darker. So that's mainly what we're going to do. We're going to do a nice simple sky again, and we're going to mix the greens and with a little bit of yellow and things to do the main fields and stuff. So to start with, we're going to do the sky. So we're going to have some blue and some white, and the first off we're just going to put some blue, as we've done in the other videos, along the top. So we're going to start with just basic blue across the top first. So this picture I started off with a 8" by 8". I think that's 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres. But you will see that a bit later on I chop it down a bit because I decide it's too big. But I left that in because I want you to see that you can fiddle with your pictures and it's fine. So you don't have to, just because you made one decision, you don't have to stay with it if you don't want to. Right, so now I'm going to mix some of this blue. So we're only going to use this blue and this white on the sky. So we're going to mix some of the blue with some of the white, and we're going to mix it reasonably well, but we want to be able to still see separate bits of white and blue in it so that we get the cloud effects. So I'm going to use my dog brush, but you don't need to. You can just pull it apart by hand and just keep mixing it up. But you'll see I'm going to make sure that it's not fully mixed through. So when I pull this apart, you'll see it's that little bit lighter, and you'll see little streaks of white and little streaks of blue. And then we're just going to make sure that we pull the top a little bit, just a little bit up like that, just to loosen it a bit so that it lands over the darker blue and we can blend it all in. And then we're going to just cover some more of the sky in that colour now. And this is a lovely easy way to make clouds in your sky. So you want to fill that in quite a way down with that colour. Just going to add a little bit more white to that now. I'm really just making sure I've got plenty of white streaks in it. And I'm just tacking this down with my needle, so you'll need to needle felt it down more thoroughly. So what I've got here now is mainly white with just a hint of blue this time. Just a little bit, because I'm going to have this mainly white at the bottom now. But it won't look odd because you've got tiny hints of blue in it, and this will just look like more clouds in the distance. And if you've drawn your picture in like I have, it doesn't matter if you come down over the lines, because we can put the hills back in a minute. And I'm going to go across the house as well, because I've just marked the house there so you could see roughly where we're going to put it. So I'm quite happy to go over it. And if you don't want your house there, you don't have to put it there. You can put it further to one side or the other of the picture. This is just an idea. So the next bit, I'm going to take a bit of yellow, and I'm using my template just to make a decent circle. But if you can manage a circle without, then just make yourself a circle in the sky for the sun. But what I've done is I've taken a bit of yellow and I'm going to mix it with a bit of white because I don't want it very, very bright. And this same yellow later on we can use for grass and things if we want to. So I've mixed it up reasonably well, so it's a little bit paler now. And then I'm just going to make myself a circle somewhere in the sky for my sun. It's almost a circle today as well, look at that. Right, so these are the greens I have, and these come from World of Wool, but don't get hung up on my greens. As long as you've got a mid-green, which I would say is that colour that I've got there, you can then add white to it, or yellow to it, or black to it, or brown to it, something like that, to get different shades. So I'm going to take some and add some white to that green colour first. Because I want a pale, pale hillside in the distance. See, it's just that bit paler. So we're going to block in our first hillsides in the background here. And you don't have to have mixed it completely thoroughly, doesn't matter if it's a little blobby. So just fill in both sides of your hills. As you can see, if you look at mine, I've got some clumpy bits in there and some white bits in there. And it's fine, it will just give texture to the hills. So what I'm doing now is I've taken that white and I'm just going to pull it really thinly. As you can see, you can do this with carded or the topsoil rolling I've got, but you see how thin I've put it, and I'm taking it over the line and I'm taking up into the sky and down over some of the hill, because I want the hills to really disappear into the distance. So I'm softening them, so I'm softening them even more. But you don't have to cover the whole hill, it's just from the sky down onto the hilltop. And then just needle felt those down as well. So I'm back with the mid-green that I've used to soften with the white, and now I'm just going to use this just as it is, and I'm going to put in my next hills. So I'm not mixing anything with this one. Doesn't matter if I go over my path a bit either. I decided my path was a little narrow at the end towards me, so that's why I've made it a bit wider. So this is just a beige I've got, and I'm just going to use this for the path. But you could make a beige if you've got some white, a bit of yellow and a touch of brown. You could mix something together, because it doesn't matter with the path, it doesn't have to be just one colour. If it's got variations in colours in it, that's great, because it looked like pebbles and bits and pieces in it. So don't worry if you don't have a smooth kind of beige that I've got. And in actual fact, I'll go over that in a bit and put a little bit of something over the top. But just at the moment, I'm just blocking in the pathway. and we're using this pathway to take your eye into the picture. Now, a quick thing here, ignore the house I've put because I take that off and I redo it. But this tree is going to be done, if you saw last week's video, then this tree is done in the same way. We're going to do circles. So the first one is a bit darker. So I'm doing a circle and then I will do a smaller circle in front of it and we'll highlight it on the side where the sun is. So we're going to do exactly the same as we did in last week's picture with the trees. I think it was last week anyway. So it's a little bit of the same green, a little bit of black just to add a bit of shadow. But that, where the house is now, that's basically where I'm putting it. And the reason I've done it is I put my house partly in because I want the tree to be behind the house. So I partly put the house, then I was going to put the tree, then I was going to put the roof on. But when I came to look at it, I decided I didn't like the colours of the walls. So, which is why I then took it back off and put a new one in. But you can have any coloured walls you want. But I'll say, just pretend that's not there for a minute. We'll go and rebuild that in a minute. But that shows you if you don't like something, it's pretty easy to pull back off again. So this is a colour called lichen. Again, it's from World of Wool, but it's quite a bright green, and I like this one for highlights. So that's what I'm using. But if you don't have, obviously you may not have that, so just mix some yellow with your green and just make a brighter green. And we're just putting that on the top of the tree that's nearest the sun. So all I'm doing really is I'm just making variations in the green colour because I don't want them all the same. And the other thing I'll mention while I'm talking through this bit with you is, if you've noticed, I've started from what would be considered the back of the picture, so the sky, which is the distant bit, and then I've done the distant hills. And what I'm doing is I'm working in layers, so each layer that comes closer to me, that's what I'm working on. So when I've done this layer, I would do what's in front of this bit, and then I'll do what's in front of that bit, so I end up at the front of the picture. I don't do the whole picture at the same time and keep going in things into the back and then things into the front, because especially with wool it gets really messy and fiddly. So try and work your pictures from what you would see the furthest distance and then come forward with it. So here I've just mixed a bit of black in with that green, and I'm just trying to separate the two colours, so a bit more shade. And whatever brown you've got, and if you haven't got a brown, then you just use a bit of black. We're just putting in a couple of trunks. And actually at the end of this video I've got two pictures to show you of this picture I've done, and I'll explain it a bit nearer when we get to it, but it's nothing much. Well, the magic, see, it's gone now. But you can see you'd never know it was there, so you can pull things back off. So this is pewter, which is one of my favourite colours because you can use it for everything. If you've watched any other of my videos, you'll know I use it for strange things. And all I've done is pulled a very thin layer of it and I'm putting it over my beige path, because otherwise that beige would have been just too flat. So I just want to break it up a bit, and rather than put another big lump of something down, I'm just putting it over thinly, and it'll just give it a bit of light and shade on the pathway. But you could do that with brown, grey, anything like that. I just wanted, because that beige is quite light, I just wanted something a little darker over it. And if you haven't seen it before, that's my multi-tool. It's just got 6 needles in, so it's a bit quicker for me. But even then, don't think this is all the needle felting I do onto it. I do a lot more when off camera. So now I decided I was going to actually do the walls a sandy colour as well. So it's basically the same colour as the path, and I'm going to build it up. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to make sure I'm thinking about the uprights, because I want the sides of the wall to be upright. So I'm just going to build that triangle back in that's at the end of the wall here. So it's a little rectangle with a triangle on the top. So that's the first bit I'm going to try and make sure I've got in place. And like I say, pop your house, if you want the house, pop it anywhere you like on your picture. You don't have to do it when I've done mine. And you can have more trees as well, obviously, if you want to. I'm sorry it's a little pale, you may not be able to see it very well, but I'm just checking where the edge of my felt is to make sure that it's upright. Yeah, see, I wasn't completely sure. So when you use your needle, it's okay to do it. Just be careful, obviously, because the little needles you break. I mean, when you use your ruler, is what I'm trying to say. Be careful, because your needles will break if you're not very careful about how you put it in next to it. But this is me just attempting to make sure the uprights are upright. So that's the pewter again. And I'm going to mix that's the colour I used on the path. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using the same two colours that I used on the path here, but I've added a little more this side because it's the shady side of the house. So I've just added a little bit of that pewter into the wall there. And then I'm just going to build myself a little rectangle here. Now the nice thing about this is you don't have to worry about the bottom side of the house. You just try and get the roof and the top halves of the wall okay, because the bottom part of that house we're going to cover with some hill. So if you think, oh, I've made it too tall, I've made it too short, whatever, you can sort that out in a moment when you put the hill on. So again, that's just a little rectangle. Now I've got some grey here and I mixed it with a little bit of black, and this is what I'm doing my roof with. So at this point I'll mention that I do put the roof on in grey. I don't mind it, but at the end of the picture I thought, I don't know, it could do with a little bit of colour. Because originally I thought I'd do the roof in red, and then I thought, no, it's going to look like a kiddie picture. So this is why I went for the grey. But when I'd finished the picture and popped it up on my wall so I could just check it out and stuff, I decided that I think the roof would be nicer with a little more colour. So if you watch it till the end of the video, you'll see I changed the colour of the roof. Either's fine, they both looked okay. I just wanted a little bit more colour, and I could have put flowers in to get the colour, something like that, but I decided just to do the roof instead. So all I've done is go up one side of the roof and then basically fill in this bit. So I did the outline of the roof in a slightly darker grey, and then I'm filling this bit in a slightly lighter grey. And I'm just going along the top there, the ridge line. That's a little bit darker again. And I think for some reason, I don't know how I missed putting it in, but don't forget to put yourself a little chimney. I don't think I showed that, but you'll see it suddenly appears with a little chimney at the top. And now I'm just using black to start because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the windows. So I've made 2 little black windows. Best I could, I've made them square down the side, and then I put one on the front, and I will put a brown door on. You see, you could do the pop of colour with the door. You could have a nice bright red door if you wanted to. I just had some brown, so I'd pop that in there. In fact, I think it's the same brown I did the tree trunks with. And again, it doesn't matter too much, as long as you get it looking a bit like a door on that, again, because we can cover some of that up with the hillside. This was just a little bit of dark to go under the eaves on that side of the house. I wanted to define that line a little more. So that's all I'm doing here, is I'm just putting a little bit of extra dark in. I've added a little bit of shadow in places on this picture because if you're following along from the previous pictures and things, then you'll see I'm gradually adding extras in so you learn new things, new skills. So if you haven't seen them, you can always go back. They started this year in January, so there's lots of obviously other ones from last year, but I'm trying to do like a sequence of things so that you get to start to see that they'll get a bit more involved and things as we go along. So this has just a couple of extra bits, which is why I thought I'd put the house in, as I say, and there will be just a little bit of extra shading in this one. But I'm not shading everything like I would if I was doing it as a main picture for me. Everything would have to have a lot more shade and things in, but I don't want to put you off. So here, this is where you can cover up a lot of things that you may not be happy with about your house when you stick this hill in. So this is your mid-green colour that I'm using at the moment. So now this is what would be considered the darker green. So either it's going to be a green that you've mixed a little black with. If you look at this, this is pre-mixed. It's called moss green, I believe. And it actually has a little bit of yellow and a little bit of black and green, which is why I like it, because it's a nice mixture of colours. But you can get a similar feel. You just want to make it a bit darker. I'm pretty sure this is moss green, and I buy it from a company in the UK called The Makers, and that's with 2 S's at the end. But it's one of my staple greens. I love this green. So you can see I'm just tacking it in place at the moment, but I do needle felt it down. I keep saying that because it's so important. I don't want you to think that's all you have to do. So now I'm adding some of the dark green on this side as well. And what we're basically going to do on these hills and fields is add some light greens and some yellowy greens and darker greens. We're just breaking up the fields, and you may find you end up with nice looking rolling little hills and things. So don't be scared to put bits down. You can lay it down without even felting it in and see what you think. See how thin I pulled that. So this is where you get to have a play and see what different effects you can get. So that's the lichen green that I've got there, again from World of Wool. And I'm just mixing my greens up a little bit now because I want, as you can see, I'm just grabbing little bits. I just want a variation in colour, and I wanted something a little brighter where the sunlight would be catching the grass. And again, I'm just pull it thinly and lay it down. I'm not laying it all over because obviously the sunlight might not be all over the grass. So I'm just putting in areas. And the trick to it is to pull it thin and put thin layers down. And if you can see the colour that you put before through it, then it's thin enough. Because the whole purpose of this is to make sure that you've got a variety of colours. And especially when you do something like a light and a dark, that gives you the little dips in the grass, because you'll get the shady areas and you haven't had to work too hard to get it. So I'm showing you what I'm doing, but you know, it's really worth you having a play. And now you can see, just looking at that, how those distant hills have gone right back into the background because we've made them so pale. So again, I'm just mixing colours, I'm just grabbing colours and mixing them together. So you can do this when if you haven't got the dog brush, just keep pulling it apart. You don't need to mix it perfectly. I like variations and little lumpy bits in mine. I'm just thinning out some extra big bits there. So now I've got a dark brown, or a brown mixed with some black, whatever you want. Don't use straight black though, because it's too dark. And we're just going to cover round the path area here. Only the bits you would see if you were looking at the path. Don't do all around all the edges. So just imagine what part of the banks you would see. Because if you look there, I would only see that little curve. I wouldn't see over the bank, if you're following what I'm saying. So that's why I make sure I only do the outlines, like I say, where you'd see them. And they can be thick and thin, doesn't matter. These don't have to be perfect little lines. So you have an option now, really, more or less at this point, that you could keep playing with it, or you could leave it as it is if you wanted to, and not take it any further. But I'm going to show you just some ideas now of what you could do just to add something else to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I've just got a chocolate brown really, and I'm going to mark in a fence. I'm not doing any kind of fancy fence. We're just going to have 3 long bits and some uprights. If you've watched any of my more complex videos, I do show you how to make fences with shading and all this stuff. But if you're new, you don't want that. You just want to be able to put yourself a fence in. So I'm just doing long strands from wherever you want to start with, and I'm taking mine up to the little house. So don't forget as well that the nearer to you the fence is, the wider the gaps are going to be, and the further away from you it is as it goes towards the house, the gaps between the little long bits will get narrower. And you need to make sure you think of things like that, because that's what's going to give you your perspective, your feeling of distance. So you could just have 2 there. I decided to put 3 in. I probably would have been better just leaving it with 2, because it did get very very tight towards the house. Didn't really matter, but I could have got away with just doing 2. And then all you've got to do is take the same thing. I'll tell you how I do these, because I've got some, this is roving, which is the wool that pulls into the long bits. I take a long strand, I fold it in half, and where the loop is at the top, I stick my needle in there, pull it up, and then needle felt it down, and that's where hopefully you'll see. But that's how I get a better top to it, because it's folded over. So just put in as many as you want. You can put a little gate in if you want as well. So down here now, I'm just putting some extra dark in. I just decided to have a little bit more dark at the front of the picture here. So what I'm doing now are all optional extras really. So at this point, I've left all this in so you can see. At this point I'd studied the picture and decided it was too big and I'd got too much space around everything. So I decided where I wanted to take it smaller, and I've used my ruler and I'm going to lop some bits off, and hopefully you'll see that it actually looks a little bit better when I've done it. So I took that bit off, which I think already made it look nicer, because the house now isn't in the middle of the picture. And then I thought there's still too much at the bottom, so I've done exactly the same thing along the bottom. And this is the thing, you know, you can have a play and you can have a feel for what you like. I like that better. It's just personal. I don't know whether you think you agree with me, but I like that better. So having done that, I decided that the hill at the bottom on this side that I'm going to work on there was not quite big enough. So I went back in and added a bit more green. Oh, and the other thing is, the bits I cut off, I pulled all the wool back off those. I saved it. I didn't just pull it off and throw it away. I've actually pulled the wool back off and put them in my little pile of scrap wool. So don't waste anything. So this bit here is a little bit of the darker wool, and I'm just putting it on this side of the house as a bit of shadow cast by the sun. You know, as the sun hits the house, there's a little bit of shadow. Nothing too much. Don't do it if you're not comfortable doing it. I just wanted to show you a little bit of things that you could add as extras. And this bit here is just a bit of the darker green as well as the shadow that the trees are casting. If I'd wanted to, I could have done the same thing with all the fence posts and put shadow in, but I just thought it would be too much. If you're new, it's fiddly and it's quite a lot to do. So, but do feel free to add your shadow for your fence posts as well. And then I'm just adding some slightly different variations of greens in it to just, you know, make the grass at the front a bit more interesting. I didn't want just big lumps of green and nothing to look at on it. So this is why I'm just adding a bit more variety. Like I say, all this is optional once you've finished your basic picture. Now I've got a bit of grey. I've just got a lump of grey and I'm going to put it down as a rock. So I've put my lump of grey down, and you can see I'm just plopping a lump of grey and just needle felting it in, because rocks are lots of different shapes, so none of that matters. And then what you can do is take a bit of that grey and mix a little white with it, and we'll put a little bit on the top in a minute as a highlight to that rock. You just need to make sure you lay it down thinly. You don't want a big clump of it. You want to be able to see some of the grey from underneath through it. And that's just on the top. We don't want it all the way over it. So there we go. Now we have a rock. You can put as many of those as you like as well. So now I've got very dark greeny black colour, and I'm putting a bit of shadow. So I've now put a bit of yellow. I'm going to put a bit of yellow into both of these little windows inside the black, so you're still going to have a little bit of black as a surround around it. I can't imagine why people would have their light on during the day, but just wanted to bring a bit more life to the actual little house. And here I'm just putting a bit of a line across the top of the hill. I wanted to make the line a little crisper, so that hill stands out a bit better. Not finished yet. We're going to have another little rock here. Same thing, plop down a little bit of grey and then put a little bit of the light grey on the top of it. So now I'm just going to show you a little bit of something else. If you can hear any funny noises, sorry, my dog's trying to make a bed in the chair. She's got cushions and jumpers and stuff she's digging up. Right, anyway, sorry. So this bit here is just black, and I'm going to show you how to build a little bit of a wall if you wanted an old stone wall. But this is a really simple way to do this to start with. So I'm just putting a basic black and blocking where you want your wall, and then we're just going to roll little bits of grey. We can have some of the light grey, some of the dark grey, that kind of thing, and we're just going to lay it in blobs. It doesn't have to be perfect. They can all be different sizes, and it doesn't matter. So we're just going to put some blobs on this wall, and if you can leave little gaps between each bit so you see a little bit of the black through, that's fine as well. So I've put a little bit of lighter grey along the top of the wall, and then I'm just going to blob in the darker and lighter bits all along the rest of it. And as you'll see, they're all different sizes and things. The only thing I have tried to do is try and keep them going in the same line, so they all run along like the fence is running. Like you'd have a brick wall. If you saw the bricks in the wall, they'd all be running that way. And that's all I've tried to do. But they're different sizes, slightly different heights, all sorts. You could, if you wanted to, do the stone wall all the way down to the house. The only reason I wouldn't suggest you do that is it would be a very dark line all the way, and you would block out some of your picture, because at the moment you can see through the fence, whereas I think if you did the brick wall all the way it would be a bit too much, but you could if you want to. So here again I'm just adding a little bit of the darker green, just a little bit of shade. And because you've got that really mottly effect, it looks like grass and things, it's quite good. So what I'm doing here is I've got a bit of black, and anywhere I decided that I'd lost the shape of the bricks a little bit and I wanted them a little more defined, I'm just going round them with some black. So I'm not doing the whole wall like this. I'm just picking out some bricks or some stones and just going round them a bit. Just so a few stand out a bit more. And I've got a little tiny bit of black here, and I thought I'd outline the door. It gives me an opportunity to straighten up the edges a little bit and things. So my last bit is I'm just going to put a few little white dots in here and there, just to give a little bit of life at the front here, a few flowers. You could add lots of different colours, but if it was me, I'd keep it fairly muted. I wouldn't do like lots of reds and things like that, because you want your eye to go to the house, and if you have a lot of colour at the front, your eyes never travel back to the house. So you can definitely have flowers. You could do some pale blues because you've got that up in the sky. You could probably do a little pale yellow, things like that, but mine are just white. And all I'm doing now here is just adding a little bit of the darker green here and there to give the illusion of like banks, so where it might dip down a bit and then come up a bit. And this is the bit at the end. I wanted to show you that 2 different colours for the roofs. So you could choose, whether you want the pale grey or the more terracotta colour, whatever you feel like. I don't know which I like now, looking at them both. I think they're both quite nice. So I'll leave that choice with you. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you did. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.